Hey, we're so happy that you're with us. We've got a great guest on the show today, and I think she is a great example of you don't have to be necessarily a household name or a superstar or whatever to be a big-time star in country music.
Hugely successful.
Really successful, doing a lot of great things. Her name is Stephanie Quayle. She's got a full-length album out there, several EPs, singles, music videos, the whole thing, and we're going to dive in a little bit and let you get to know her, in case you don't, in just a couple of seconds, as she is our very special guest. Well, we are so excited to welcome this guest to the show. She is incredibly talented and incredibly cool, and we have a connection in an employee that she has.
Yes, and I've got a connection with her. Many years ago, Rob Dalton introduced me to her, and we started writing a song together and never finished it. So I could tell how she was impressed with my writing chops.
Well, that just means it's been percolating.
Yes, that's it. Been stewing on it for 15 years.
Wants to get it just right.
Yeah, it means sometimes songs take a really long time.
People don't know that. Stephanie, it's great to see you. Thanks for being here.
Oh, great to see you guys. Thanks for having me.
So let's dive right in and let's talk a little bit about that, just the songwriting process and getting music out there. How do you do it? It's different for everybody, but what's the process for you? How do you get ideas all over the place? You keep a little notebook? Do you keep it in your phone? How do you make it work?
All of the above.
Okay.
All of the above. Now, with On the Edge, that particular album, because it was such a specific, it's some people have referred to it as like a bit of a concept album, but because it was my prequel to my now life, I went in with very specific intention to tell that story. And I think we got it right with the, chronological aspects of it. I think with other albums, it just depends. Right now, I've kind of opened Pandora's box, and there are a lot of exes I've never written about.
Ooh.
So that's kind of going to be fun. It's really fun to write about things. I'm like, I'm going to go to all the places.
Will it be fun for them? That's the question.
Well, I'll never tell. I'll never give all the information away with this. But yeah, I'll get an idea in my head and a song title or something that someone says. Like this morning I was on the radio with WSM, the Opry radio station, and I got to sit in for Kelly, and someone said something and I was like, ooh, if I just turn that around a little bit, that could be a really cool song. And then it's going to figure out, is this already someone else's number one? Because that has happened to me as well, where I think I'm like, I'm a genius. And it's because I've heard it on the radio for, 20 years or whatever it is. So no, it's a process. I think songwriting, I think, Chris can, we all feel this way. It's just it's magic and it's divine and it's a craft. So it's this convergence of daring not to suck, as John May puts it, and being willing to just go to those places. And I'm excited. I'm more excited as a songwriter now than I think I've ever been, because I, kind of let this guard down that I've been holding up to protect other people. And now I'm, not having to do that. And that feels very freeing. So I'm excited to know me now as a songwriter and where that will lead. And I have a few that I'm working on right now that I think could be the makings of the next album that have me making this face, which is a good sign.
Excellent.
This is a good sign.
Are you excited about the way the world is now? And what I mean by that is the social media aspect of it, and not needing the record label necessarily to be 100% the only way you're going to make it.
I have all kinds of feelings. I started my label back in 2015. So I've always been signed to myself.
Yeah.
We have great distribution through the Orchard, which is its own way of doing it. The digital landscape has changed so much since 2020.
Right.
That I think that when I think of artists coming up now and being able to put their music on one platform and it give them almost overnight success in some ways, I think it's a double-edged sword. I do think that there's no reason, there's nothing holding anyone back from being successful, especially in this industry. It's just, it's finding a way, right? And
Finding the way, and how hard are you willing to work to do it?
Well, right. I think, we are our own best advocates, right? I think that the misnomer that there's going to be one person that's going to set your world on fire. I mean, I think that happens on the occasion. I just don't think it's the norm. So really leaning into, okay, how can I do it better? How can I be a better artist, better entertainer, better musician, better songwriter, better businesswoman, to find, new avenues within all of the avenues that are. It's vast. It is the wild, wild. I think we're going to see a lot. Even in the short 3 years that we've just experienced so much change, I think we're in for another run of that. Mm. And so I think, with looking at how AI is changing songwriting and with these different, ways of creating music and artists without actually using humans.
Yeah.
I think what we have to remember, especially I always go back to how I began, and it started for me on stage. And that's how it will always be. Because I think the live visceral experience that happens with music, mm-hmm. I have yet to meet a robot that has taken that space.
100%. Well, I mean, there's a reason that Rick Springfield wrote Human Touch in the 80s. And
yes.
These things need a human touch. I mean, all kidding aside, it's true.
Tony just touched on it a second ago where he's talking about willing to work. One thing we've noticed about you for sure is you have a work ethic. You're always working. I mean, do you ever have downtime?
I do, but I have downtime more for the sake of, what Stephen Covey would have said, sharpening the saw. I take time to stop thinking so I can be a better thinker, right? I take time to step away from whatever aspect I'm working on so that I can be better at it. Whereas before, I think I just plowed right through. I was just like, who needs sleep? Yeah. Who needs to just take that time to really, rest your mind. I'm finding that, this strategic taking that time is making me a better person all around for sure. So yeah, but I mean, I don't need a lot. I can a couple days off. I start to get a little itchy. I'm like, okay, that's a little too much. I'm a weirdo. But I jump on the back of my horse for a few hours, and it's just so life giving. Or I go for a hike, or I go fishing. I mean, I get to do really wonderful things to kind of settle my head down. But I love to work.
Being from Montana, how sick are you of the whole Yellowstone thing? Are people just driving you crazy with it?
I mean, I get asked on probably almost a daily basis when I'm going to be on the show. Uh-huh. And then that makes me go, well, maybe we're manifesting a show that we'll do with Taylor, and it will be like something else. Who knows, right?
Why not?
I love Westerns. So I think this is a fun, modernized version of a really exaggerated story.
Yeah, like an apple dumpling gang type thing.
Just a little, I've never been to the train station. I don't know if the train station really, but I love horses. I love cattle. That's what I grew up with. We have that still to this day. So it's kind of, it's fun to watch, and, all the people coming to Montana, I get it. It's hard to say, why wouldn't you want to live in this extraordinary place? I'm just more on the stand of maybe come learn the people, learn the community, and see what you learn first before you maybe decide for others what they've been doing for many years.
Walk before you run.
There was a day that Nashville was like that.
Yeah.
Sure. Those days are long gone.
There's a lot, and I think people, especially since 2020, people are so hungry for that peace of mind and being somewhere where they feel like they can catch their breath. I think that's why we're seeing so many people move to these, Nashville's surrounding has just exploded, an hour any which direction. Seeing the same thing in North Carolina where our cattle farm is, and ranch farm, depends on who you're talking to. It's just cattle on ground. Right. And in Montana, of course, it's like when the Nashville TV show came out, I felt like it really exploded after that show. And I do think Yellowstone has had some impact. But, it was also 70 below with a wind chill factor. So, that it kind of like, sorts itself out.
I was just saying, it turns away the weak of heart for sure. Yeah.
I would last about 2 seconds in that.
I love it. Like, I can't do southern humidity. I'm a big baby. I'm like, I've got like my down coat on and they're like, aren't you from Montana? I go, yes, I am. But here's what Montana does not have. Humidity that goes inside your bones.
It's true.
You just don't know you're frostbit. And then then you're, that's a different trouble.
Yes. Well, my son, we lived in California, and when he went to college, he chose a music school in St. Paul, Minnesota.
Yeah.
He didn't even own a coat. So, but he went and he graduated and he stayed there. He loves it there. So he's willing to give up, and he has to keep a close eye on his mental health because it can be tough. When the darkness and the cold, it can be challenging.
It's a real thing. And I think, looking at those northern states that have those long winters, that is something I appreciate you bringing that up because it's so important. Our surroundings have such impact on our mental health. And I watched a lot of my friends go through some really dark times. Thank God I had to be outside because it was the farm, right? So if it's 30 below or 105 above, like, animals have to get fed. You got to break up water. It's just part of the thing. But you're right. It can be some really short days.
I was just going to say, on the subject of mental health, and since we're naturally there, this beautiful little necklace you've got. Why don't you tell us a little bit about that?
This is really cool. So Montana Silversmiths is out of Columbus, Montana, and they do all, the Yellowstone, all the work, a lot of the rodeo, belt buckles and such. And so with the album, May is Mental Health Awareness Month, and Montana Silversmiths and myself, we created this collaboration of the Phoenix. So it's the edge off the album, which is the 7th song, is talking about, you have to touch the edge to know the line. Sometimes you have to get to your breaking point to know if you're going to break. And so this is really a symbol of resilience. And I'm just excited about because it is made in Montana. I'm made in Montana. And it's just there's a lot of strength in that vulnerability of saying, "Hey, I need help. I need support. I'm not fine." And so I think kind of unwrapping the stigma that we all have stuff. We're all going through different things, be it ourselves or people in our lives, and just being able to have those open and honest conversations. That it's very strong. It takes a lot of strength and courage to be able to say, like, I need help and I need support. So it's a conversation a lot of people I think have been afraid to say because it's been, kind of like, well, no, that's weak. That's weakness. Yeah. And I think very opposite. I think it's a strength.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I mentioned my son. He had some pretty dark issues and I have my own issues. We talk about it a lot. We talk about it openly, and we really, everyone has these problems, but I really try to push for men to be aware of it and to recognize it in themselves, because what you mentioned is so true. Especially men of a certain age, you grow up and you no, stop crying.
Right.
You don't show your emotions. You're not supposed to cry. You're not supposed to have these. And so I think a lot of men end up really kind of messed up inside because they don't know how to get the bad feelings out, and it becomes something that manifests in a really terrible way. So I love that you're an advocate for that. That's great.
I think it's so important. And I very much feel what you're saying. I've seen it in a lot of my male friends, and, growing up in kind of that hard living culture of, when you're farming and ranching, and it's just like, it's a stiff upper lip. I mean, I got really good at it. I had almost convinced myself, right. That I'd gotten past it. And that's the thing about, grief and our trials, is that those challenges are there to teach us something. And the only way around it is really through it. And I've got to experience that in a way now where I'm like, oh, this is the other side. I'm not all the way there yet, but the freedom that comes with honesty and being able to go like, no, my stuff's not okay. And I think we all don't know quite what to say when someone says, hey, I'm having a hard time, because we all want everyone to be all right. And I think we all have to also be all right when people aren't all right.
Right. Yeah.
And that's new territory, right?
Sure.
Even saying it feels a little weird.
Yeah, well, it's because most people want to just say, "Oh, you'll be okay," but they don't want to open up to how can I help you, or let's talk about this. It's just pat on the shoulder. Oh, you'll be fine, because this is awkward and uncomfortable.
Walk it off.
Yeah. And I think too, we all have to, unless you're an expert in psychology and all the other things. And I always look at it like, here's my experience. Here's what I do. I'm just becoming an expert in myself. But man, if you need help, here are the 5 numbers I'll give you right now, right? Like grief, run to grief counseling. I wish I would have. I didn't. And I finally got there, after a few years. And when I did, I just understood why they were trying to get me to go sooner. Yeah. And so there's, we all learn as we go. And so it's like, how can we share those messages so others get their time back, right? Like that's the greatest thing. Like if I get to gift people time back and maybe they don't stay so long in a unhealthy relationship or an unhealthy environment and they make that change and that truncated pain, right? Mm-hmm. Instead of 4 years, maybe it was 6 months, or instead of 2 years, or whatever it is, that's like, okay, that doesn't make me go, man, I'm so glad that happened, but using it for good, that makes me, I'm like, all right, we can work with that.
Awesome. Excellent. Let's mention quickly too. We talked a little bit about a lot of things. But you got a podcast as well that we should talk about that people want to check out?
Yeah. Evidently people like to hear me speak.
Listen to me.
Listen to my voice. With the story behind the album, because it is kind of this stranger than fiction conversation from, this tragic to the betrayal to the redemption, we wanted to have a companion piece that, I couldn't whip up a documentary, right? Yeah. Or like have within that time. So how we could share the story behind the stories and also the process of making the music. Nice. And so it's kind of like a little VH1 behind the scenes unplugged kind of vibe. It's just my voice sharing that. And then season 2 we're working on, and it's exciting. It's a new place for me. It's a different challenge, and I love to work. So let's see what I can, how many different tenses I can speak in at one time. I'm like future past, present.
Hey, we've got our 10 fingers. Let's put them in as many pies as we can. See what's up.
Yeah. Exactly.
Excellent. Well, we'll have links to all that in the description, and we'll make sure that people get connected to you. And gosh, thank you so much, Stephanie, for taking the time. And we love, for us, we've been in radio for so long. Everything we've always done in conversations has been, we got to keep it quick. We can only hit just a couple of little things. Yeah. And we've loved this more long form kind of thing where we can just have a conversation and cover a little more ground. And we can't thank you enough for taking the time to do that.
Oh, well, no, I mean, you guys are awesome. Thanks for wanting to have me here.
And we can't thank you enough for taking care of one of our big teddy bears, EJ.
I get to see him. I think I'm going to get to see him this week.
Oh, cool.
Excellent. Well,
I'm due for an EJ hug.
They're the best. He's hugged us many times. Usually none of us are wearing clothing, but that's another story for
another day.
I don't want to know what happened.
He's always wearing his shoes. Other than that, he's got to have his shoes,
Oh dear. Oh, his Nikes.
Yeah.
He does have that. I feel very sporty today. Big shout out to Sweet Sherry, our Chief Joy Officer. She's from the flock of Quayle. She just makes the most incredible little joy balls for us.
That's awesome. Well, we will hopefully see you soon in person. And in the meantime, all the stuff's here on the description. And thank you for your time.
Thank you guys for having me.
We really appreciate you.